Hello, welcome to the Wasting Time podcast. I'm one of your hosts, Chris. I'm here with Nick. How's it going, man? You good?
Yeah, not bad, buddy. How you doing?
Yeah, I'm all right.
Going to be moving house soon, which is good.
Excellent.
Finally got my house move going through, so a couple of weeks' time. So that's keeping me busy and a bit out of the loop with just music stuff, I guess, really.
Okay.
So yeah, what's been going on? Anything?
Yeah, a few new releases. There was a new song that Machine Gun Kelly put out with Kellen Quinn this week, which is really good.
I didn't see that.
It came out yesterday, which was on the 29th. Except, have a listen to it. See if you think it's a rip-off of Reliant K's Be My Escape, which it sounds like it is in the verses a little bit, which someone pointed that out on Reddit, and once I read that, I can't unhear that, and it kind of spoils it a little bit.
Okay.
Still a fun song. I'm just going to whack up my Tidal here because I feel I've been listening to a lot of new stuff. New album by Eternal Boy. Don't know if you've listened to them much before, but they release solid pop punk music. Have a listen to that. It's called Bad Days Are Over. I was drawn to a song on Instagram this week by a band called Ruthcrest, and it's almost like someone's doing a parody of like pop punk, but it's a banging song. So it's called If You Were Here. So have a little blast of that.
Okay.
Sam Russo, a former guest on this show, put out some full band versions of a couple of acoustic songs he had last year. Go and listen to a song called The Window. That's really good. It's really good. I was listening to a bit of a band called Summer Curse, which is this guy called Dave Gomez, who we're linked with on Instagram and stuff, and I'm linked with on Facebook, who always puts out really cool stuff. I'd recommend listening to them. He also recently had a compilation put out. It's like in the style of those Atticus compilations from back in the day, and it's loads of bands like covering Chicago bands. So there's like covers of Mest and Alistair and stuff like that.
Nice.
That's worth checking out. I think, I posted, like, if any listeners are interested, I posted about that on our Instagram a few weeks back, so you can find that there. That's definitely worth checking out.
Cool.
And I think that's it, really.
That's a pretty good summary.
Yeah.
I'm just scrolling through Chorus FM here and saw the Main have done a cover of Fall Out Boy. Thanks for the memories. You heard that?
Yeah, that came out yesterday too. It's funny because I don't like that Fall Out Boy song. That won't shock you.
You quite like the Main one.
I do, yeah. They've made it sound better, I thought. So have a listen and see what you think.
I'll give it a listen, yeah. Oh, here's a post here. Cali Massey on new podcast. Anthony and Sam from Cali Massey are the latest guests on the Wasting Time podcast.
You see, Jason Tate's always good to us like that.
What a guy.
So yeah, shout out to him. Thanks for always posting our episodes, Jason. Massively appreciate that.
Nice.
But how's your ear, by the way, Nick?
My ear's my ear's fine, man. Yeah. Just had a bit of microsuction done. Yeah. It's all right now. As soon as I had that done, it was good to go.
Yeah. That's good news. Just for the listener, the reason I'm asking Nick that is, so this episode that we're on now, when we were about to record it, Nick woke up basically not being able to hear out of his ear, which is obviously a problem. So he had to go and get that treated, obviously. But you'll hear he's not on this. Apart from this part, he's not on this episode, unfortunately.
Yeah, it sounded like you had enough fun by yourself, really. So
yeah, it was a really good one. So we had Davey Warsop, who's a producer, member of the band Sharp Shock, but he kind of found fame being in the Beat Union like just over a decade ago. But he's a really interesting guy, and I enjoyed chatting away to him, as you will hear in a minute. Should we just jump into it?
Yeah, let's go for it.
All right, let's do it. Anyway, so this is my solo chat with Davey. I hope everyone enjoys. Anyway, man, thanks so much for giving us some of your time. It's really cool of you.
Absolutely. Thanks for asking me to have a chat with you.
Yeah, of course. Well, it's funny because, like, both, I'll speak for Nick as well. We're both sort of fans of, going back to the Beat Union days, and like kind of, I've personally followed your career relatively closely since then. And And like as we were chatting just before we got on this, you were mentioning we had Lovebreakers on the show, and like I kind of, we're big fans of what they're doing. Obviously, we know about them working with you, and funnily enough, I've started managing them since doing that. So I'm speaking to them a lot, and like it's funny you mentioned Christian before because we were just texting before you came on this. I know you speak to him quite a lot still, so it's just like after all of that, we've got to have Davey on, because like if it wasn't for the Lovebreakers connection, there's still a fuckload I want to ask you about your career and what you're up to anyway. So just it made sense to reach out to you.
Well, Chris, I'm flattered, mate. It's funny now. Like time's getting on, and it's interesting actually, considering Beat Union weren't this like massive band or anything.
Yeah,
I do get hit up a lot, and it's really flattering when people go, "Oh, I've followed you since Beat Union or Beat Union this, Beat Union that." So, fuck, man. If you were a fan back then and you were aware of it, then I'm very flattered.
Well, it's funny, man. I'll take it back a little bit further. I'm not going to claim I was a fan before that, but so what was it? Shortcut to Newark? Was that a band like? Maybe a couple of years before Beat Union or whatever.
Yeah, you know your stuff. Yeah.
Oh yeah. I've done my research, man. No, it's funny because like I mentioned like working with Lovebreakers, and I kind of this is like my first foray into that side of things. So like I've kind of been reaching out to people I vaguely know or have connections with like from over the years. So I had a Zoom with do you remember Rob Hitt, who was in Midtown and then still does I Surrender Records. So I was having a Zoom with him last week, and because I think I've got both of you on Facebook, and I saw that he'd so I told him about Lovebreakers, and I said about you working with them, and he was like, "Oh, Davey did this. That completely makes sense." And then I saw he posted on your Facebook like an old demo that you sent him.
Yeah. It's funny. I've been in touch with Rob on and off for years, and like it's funny we're not actually in each other's lives that much, but he was one of the first believers in like basically that band Shortcut to Newark, which was pre-Beat Union. We played some shows with Midtown. I think only maybe like 2 or 3 maybe even 1 or 2 shows. Not much. It's not like we were like touring with them for weeks or anything. But we opened for Midtown. And Rob really liked us, and we would send him demos and stuff. And then when it kind of became Beat Union, he was one of the believers, just one of those first core believers in Beat Union. It never really worked out because he was obviously doing I Surrender Records, and he was kind of interested in signing us. And it just never quite developed. But he was a believer, man. So I got a lot of love for Rob because he was always into it.
Yeah, no, so it's funny. So I was going back and listening to those Shortcuts in Newark because it was on the streaming services. I was surprised to see. So it was cool to go back and listen to that. So like we kind of like want to go through your career and stuff a little bit and stuff, but I guess I'm just kind of curious as to let's start with like what you're up to now, like how things are in your studio, how things are in California, and what's it like with the pandemic at the minute and stuff, like things relatively open, like how's that going right now?
It's I think there's light at the end of the tunnel. Obviously there's this vaccine now. I live in Long Beach, California, which is basically, it's LA County, it's part of LA, but it's kind of the very edge of LA. And there's the Long Beach Convention Center here, which is doing it's mass vaccinating people every day. So at least in my little bubble, it feels like things are pretty optimistic and starting to change. And I've had both shots of my vaccine. Nice. So that puts me a little bit more at ease. Sure. My friends in my circle are getting it. Things are kind of, it's an interesting one, really, because America's, I think, just so different to the UK because it's so massive and there's obviously so many different states. But at least in California, it feels like it's been in this kind of middle ground. Like it seems like in the UK, like you've been on this full-on lockdown, like really, really strict. And in California, it feels a bit more like 50-50, like a lot of places are open, like people are doing business. It seems kind of like limited hours. There just isn't, there isn't indoor dining and there's no shows. But supposedly I forget the actual date, but the end of June, live shows are coming back in California, supposedly.
Yeah.
I mean, that's the date that they're saying. So I think I'm feeling there's some light at the end of the tunnel. So yeah, I've got my studio set up here in Long Beach, California. It is about a 10-15 minute walk from my house every day, which is lovely. Yeah, growing up in Birmingham, England, it's I'm walking to school in the rain and all that. It's I count my blessings every single day. I'll just walk to my studio, looking at palm trees and blue skies most days. You know what I mean?
Yeah, of course.
And believe me, I'm grateful for it every day, and it never gets old. But yeah, it's been difficult getting the studio going. It couldn't have happened at a shittier time in a lot of ways. Yeah. But I've been busy, just been, trying to be careful, trying to concentrate on a lot of mix work and editing work and stuff, a little bit more than having bands through constantly. And there's a lot of bands that have been, we get tested before we start work and stuff like that.
Yeah.
So just trying to be as cautious as possible whilst, trying to keep the business afloat.
When did you officially open this studio?
This was last year. So officially, the first thing I did was worked on the new Face to Face record, which was around May or June last year.
Okay.
And that was the first thing I did. And it's a very long story, but I actually had to move premises. There was it's a long story. There was a situation. I built the studio and I had to basically move it. It all kind of worked out. But yeah, the first thing I worked on was the latest Face to Face record, which I think is coming out. I just spoke to Trevor the other day, and when did he say? I think it was maybe September-ish sometime.
Okay.
It'll be out this year.
Oh, nice. What was it like working with them?
That was awesome. That was great. They're an awesome band. They've been going for years, and I think it's very different when you work with a young band or a band that's working on their first record, or like a baby band, compared to working with musicians that have just been around the block and they're kind of somewhat legendary now and somewhat old school by today's standards, I suppose. They're just
of course.
They know exactly what they're doing. They know exactly what they want. They're incredible musicians. Trevor can just sing night after night after night and never seems to blow his voice out. He can go for it.
Did you produce that record, or was it more just engineering? How involved in the kind of song structure and stuff were you there?
It was more just engineering again, because they're quite hands on and they kind of know what they want. And they'd already written the songs. They actually tracked some of it at a different studio. So they started and got the drums done, and we were working on guitars and vocals. So, this is what I mean by they're kind of seasoned. They've done it a million times before. They know exactly what they're doing. So I'm just trying to record everything, make it a good experience for them, record everything as cleanly and professionally as possible, give them a good record sonically. And sometimes I'll, work with them on tones a little bit and have some input there in terms of song structures and stuff. And then I suppose I did have a little input here and there with let's try this harmony or let's try this vocal melody or something. But like I say, they know what they're doing. They don't need to hold their hand, you know what I mean?
Right. And I guess at this point you've working with kind of legends, for want of a better word, Face to Face, that's probably not as intimidating to you as it might be for others. Because I'm thinking back to, I remember, so you did all that stuff, the Hurley Studios or whatever, and I remember seeing an interview you were doing with Mike Ness, and I think it was you chatting to Mike Ness, and so this was around their last record, so it was a decade ago now. But I remember him saying to you, goes, "Oh, you've just been so helpful on this record and stuff." So you've been working with people like that for some time, presumably now.
You know what's funny about that is, again, man, good job. You've done your research, because you found that interview somewhere. Yeah, I worked on, they were demoing, I think, for their new record. That wasn't actually their record at that time. It was the Hard Times and Nursery Rhymes record, but they were rehearsing and demoing, and I helped them. I recorded some demos, basically, for that.
Okay.
When they were writing in the studio, they were writing and recording for that record, and I demoed everything with them. Yeah, but that's a funny one, because, fame and legendary status and all this, it's in the eye of the beholder, isn't it? it's one of those things. If you were massively influenced by someone or a big fan of someone, it's a little easier to be kind of intimidated, like when you're in the room.
Right.
What the fuck? I'm in the room with this person? Like, this is crazy. But I'll be honest, I don't know how things are there in the UK now, but when I was growing up, Social Distortion was not a big band in the UK. Right. And they're a very, obviously, again, legendary, massive band. I'm not kind of knocking their status at all, but every band kind of has their territories where they do better and they have a bigger fan base. And Social Distortion are definitely a Southern Californian band. Like they're kings of Southern California. And for me, growing up in the UK, they were one of those bands. Even though I was into California punk and hardcore, they were a band whose like name was on the radar.
Yeah,
but I probably only ever heard like one song on a compilation or something.
Yeah. It's funny you say that, like, because I think like you and me are like we're pretty much the same age, and like it was the same for me. I remember, obviously the name or whatever, they're a legacy band or whatever, and I remember it wasn't until about 2005 my brother had just randomly bought their live album and he played it to me, and because I'd never actually stopped and listened to them, and it was a bit poppier than I thought it would be, and like I just songs were super catchy, and like I got really into them from that point onwards. And it's always been like with friends I've had in the scene or whatever, obviously everyone knows who they are, but people aren't people, it's not like other bands. People don't seem to know their discography so well and stuff. I mean, obviously they're big enough that they'll always play like Shepherd's Bush when they come to London or whatever, but generally you're right that they're not like other bands over here.
I mean, people hit me up around that time that I was doing those demos with Social D and did that interview with Mike for Hurley. And I remember a few people like, man, you got some nerve. You can hold court with Mike Ness for an hour.
Right. Yeah.
Like, how was that? Were you intimidated or this, that, and the other? And I remember just being like, it's just a normal bloke, man. It's just like chilling with a normal bloke, you know what I mean? But I mean, that's what he was to me, because I just wasn't like worshipping the ground he walked on. As much respect as I have for Mike is amazing. And actually, I probably became more of a fan because after that, he took Suede Head, my old band, on tour. Yeah. And then his manager, Shane, started managing Suede Head as well. Or it kind of went the other way. Shane started managing us first, maybe. And anyway, I kind of got more in that circle a bit and toured with them and started like watching Mike on stage every night. And that's when I was like, fuck, man, this guy is a fucking rock star. He's like a modern day Johnny Cash guy. Like this guy, people worship this. And you look at the, you watch the guy on stage and then you look at the crowd and you're like, oh, fuck, yeah. Like he's the real fucking deal. And I'm learning this now,
Right. Yeah. I suppose, Davey, like that's kind of a good point to, because I was going to ask about, the other bands you've done recently in the studio, but I guess we'll get to that because, you mentioned Suede Head there and stuff. So maybe let's do a quick sort of dive back into your career. And like, there's a couple of, because, as I mentioned at the start, followed it quite closely. So there's things I want to ask along the way. So let's jump back to, so obviously you formed Beat Union. Was Beat Union kind of like, did Shortcut to Newark like kind of transform into Beat Union, or was it just a completely new band after that kind of fell apart?
It was pretty much a new band. We were going in this different direction. We'd had a lineup change. Yeah. We started working. We did a demo with John Feldmann, producer Feldy. He started working with us, and we were working on all these new. It just kind of morphed into this new.
So was Feldmann interested before, like it was officially Beat Union then?
Technically, yeah, we were already kind of like, we were already talking about this change. I was becoming, I think, basically, I started listening to a lot of Elvis Costello. Really, that was a really interesting one. I kind of discovered Elvis Costello and had been listening to loads of Elvis Costello and started going in more of this kind of new wave pop punkish kind of style. Yeah. Yeah. And it was coming out of those maybe sort of more slightly emo indie rock influenced years, I guess. And it was going more towards this like Costello and Clash kind of sound. Yeah. So I think just sound and influences and the songs that I was writing were changing. There was a lineup change. We started working with Feldy, and we were just like, this is a completely different, you know, we'd been talking about morphing it into something different, and it just became something else.
That must have been exciting, like having Feldmann interested and starting to do stuff with him, because I was in bands sort of in 2003, 2004 or whatever, and it was just like, you know, because I loved like Show Off and Messed and all the stuff he'd done, and it was just kind of like, oh, that's, you know, that's the dream, to have Feldmann respond to one of your demos. So like that was a reality to you, and it's still relatively early in his producing career. That must have been so fucking cool, man.
Yeah. Well, again, I'll be honest, like I wasn't the biggest Feldmann fan.
Oh, really?
I was into the first few Goldfinger records. I wasn't a massive ska punk fan. I dipped my toe into it. I thought there was like a handful of like good ska punk bands, but I wasn't like this massive ska guy. But however, the first two Goldfinger records I thought were great, and I was a fan of those two records, but I wasn't a mega fan. So I knew who he was. I was totally aware, and we sent our demo to him. Like we were aware, but I wasn't listening. I guess what I'm trying to say is I was a fan of the first two Goldfinger records. Yeah. I wasn't a fan of the Used.
Right. So yeah, because obviously that was his big thing.
Yeah, I wasn't. I guess what I'm saying is I'm not dissing on Feldy here. I was a fan of Feldy's band. I wasn't a fan of Feldy as a producer. I hadn't really, I wasn't, like you're saying, I wasn't listening to Messed, Show Off, or the Used. I wasn't really listening to that stuff. So again, it was that thing of not quite being too starstruck from it. Right. However, I was still, that's what kind of tipped me off to be like, oh, okay, so he did the Used. All right, I know of that band. Everyone likes that band at the moment. Like I say, I just wasn't as emo screamo as everyone else. I wasn't really doing that thing, I think. But no, it still was, like I say, I'm not playing it down. We were completely, like, we were rehearsing like 4 or 5 nights a week, trying to book as many shows as we could, constantly writing. Like, we were like living our band, and we were trying to make that dream, you know, of just like, I'd worked in a fucking brush factory. I'd worked at Asda. I'd worked in warehouses. I was washing cars at the time. Yeah. Car valeting at a car dealership, like working minimum wage jobs that I just were really soul destroying. And I just read Henry Rollins' Get in the Van, and I like just really wanted to do. I just knew that maybe the DIY thing, because I grew up in the very DIY scene. Yeah. And I think that is totally a part of my heart and a big part of me. But I kind of came to this realization of like, this DIY scene that I'm a part of, like, is just going to keep me working at Asda. So I definitely, at this time, it was just like, it's going to keep me washing cars, keep me working in a warehouse or a factory. I kind of wanted the major label record deal, is kind of what I was after, really. As lame as that kind of sounds, it was just like, I wanted to tour full time. I wanted to be a musician. I just wanted to do what I was good at and what I felt I was put on the earth to do, rather than working minimum wage at a job I was just soul destroying. So we were going for it and working really hard. And John, we'd sent our demo over to John, and we weren't, thinking about it or expecting it. Actually, I'll tell you one thing. We were in our rehearsal studio in Redditch. Right. When I say we weren't expecting it, we just finished rehearsal. It was about 11:30 at night, and we were sitting on the sofa, and Dean said something about like, man, it would be awesome if John Feld, because Dean was a bit more into the Used, and he was following the John production career a bit more. And he said the words, man, it'd be fucking awesome if we heard back from John Feldmann. That would be the one, really. Yeah. And it was just a fleeting comment. And 15 minutes later, the phone rang. I think it was Luke's phone. And he was like, that's not an English number. And again, Luke wasn't even a fan of golf. Like I say, Dean was like the bigger fan of everything John had done. I was into kind of like early Goldfinger, and Luke wasn't really aware. I don't think he wasn't that big a Goldfinger fan or anything. He wasn't as deep into that American punk scene, really. So Luke answered and was like, "Who? John who? John Feldmann?" And me and Dean looked at each other and were like, "What the fuck?" Yeah, and that's how it started. But he called us, and I have to. Sorry for the long story, but
no, please. Like, yeah, I'm all about this, man.
Thinking about it now, like you saying that stuff. When I think about my life now, I mean, that was 2005-ish. So we're talking like 15 years later, and I'm living in Long Beach, California, with a studio and kind of pursuing this life. When I think about that now, it doesn't always feel like life never turns out exactly the way you hope or you plan. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
But I look back and go, like, man, to remember that person that I was and the dreams that I had, and like you say, for a lot of people in that scene, for that to be the goal, like so many bands wanted some attention from a producer like that. It really was the fucking goal. And I don't know, we never topped the charts, and we never became the next Used. That wasn't our story, but we did some cool shit, man, for lads from like Bromsgrove, Redditch, Birmingham.
Yeah.
We did some really cool shit, and I'm still kind of hanging on to that dream every single day. Honestly, when I think about like setting up my studio here, I'm so scared and nervous for like anyone does. When you make a big decision in your life, it's scary, and it's that little bit of luck that I had back then that spurred me on to do it, because I didn't, that saying, I didn't come this far to only come this far.
Sure.
So it's the fact that I got that opportunity, I got that shot. We signed a deal in America. I ended up out here. It's all those things that makes me go, what am I going to do? I'm not qualified. I never went to university. I come from the minimum wage working world. Am I going to go back to washing cars? Am I going to go back to working at Asda in Bromsgrove? And I go like, I can't. I can't go back to that. So you just got to keep pushing forward. So
for sure. But sorry, I'm jumping around a little bit here, but correct me if I'm wrong, there was a little period when you kind of came back, when Beat Union kind of disbanded. Because I heard you on Mike Herrera's podcast the other week, and there was a bit where, wasn't there a little bit where you kind of went back and you were just like, no, hang on, I need to go back out to California.
That little period right there is exactly why I know that I don't want to go back. When I say about
that's good
decisions in my life today, the reason I know I don't want to go back is because I went back for a few months. The band fell apart, the record deal fell apart.
Yeah.
I moved in to the spare room at my dad's house, and I rented the room off my dad. I'm not a kid anymore, so I had to go. I move in with my dad. I'm paying rent at my dad's.
Yeah.
I go back to work at my old job delivering car parts. And I was just like, it was complete, like I'd achieved I'd got everything I wanted. I got the record deal. I toured with everyone. I've been around the world. I'd met all these bands, shared stages.
Yeah.
With all these bands that I admired. And then I went back to square one, and it's like, there's no shame in square one. Like I love where I'm from, and I would go, that's the thing. There's always that feeling of like, I will go back to that work. If I don't keep working hard and pursuing what I love, if I don't take the chances with my studio, then I will go back to that, and it's like, I'm willing to go back to, you do what you got to do to pay the bills. You know what I mean? And that's what I did at the time. That's what I was doing. Yeah. Everything had fallen apart, and I went back and just had to save some money, pay the bills, rent a room, get on with my life, but from that little taste of it, I was just like, I don't want this. I've got to keep pushing forward. You know what I mean?
Yeah, fair play to you. Just going back to Beat Union, because sorry, I jumped ahead there. When you listen back to that record now, how does it sound to you? Because I honestly, I'm not just saying it because I'm talking to you. I fucking loved that album when it came out. I just loved the kind of, where it lay sort of, as you say, sort of in between sort of pop punk, but obviously the massive Elvis Costello kind of, new wave sound that it had going on as well, which was really cool because it kind of, it really stood out at the time. I can't remember too many other bands that were doing a similar sound. And I remember reading interviews with Feldmann around it, and obviously he's invested, so he's going to be positive about it, but he'd really be like, Davey is a star and his voice is amazing and this band's going to be huge. And, that kind of all made sense to me because I thought that record was really great. And, I hadn't listened to it for a while. And then, obviously in the run up to this, I was revisiting it. And, there's a couple of things that maybe don't sound as good to me as they did at the time. But overall, I think it's a fantastic album still. Just wondered, with it being your own, how you feel about it now and the last time you revisited it.
Well, first of all, thanks, mate. I'm glad that if that record made an impact with you, it means a lot. That's awesome. You know what? I don't listen to it much, and I haven't listened to it in a while. But funnily enough, I did revisit a few tracks, like literally probably just a few weeks ago. Maybe after he was talking to Mike, actually on.
Oh yeah.
But it made me re-listen to a few. First of all, I'm really proud of it because again. The first thing is just like I'm proud of it. Like I say, lads from working class kids in minimum wage jobs that, you know, we weren't the type, we didn't do A-levels, we didn't go to university, we were just working like, you know, in minimum wage jobs. Yeah. Pursuing the music dream. And that's so like pure and raw and real, you know, and the fact that we broke out of our hometown and achieved what we did and got that record deal, made an album in California and signed with a subsidiary of Warner Brothers and all this stuff, like it's pretty incredible. And at the time that was like the dream, and just to think that we did that when it could have so easily like not happened, you know what I mean?
Yeah, of course.
So many people dream of it and work towards that stuff. And we had some stuff going on anyway. Like I think Radio 1 had started playing us just before Feldmann started working with us.
Oh, really? Okay.
Yeah, and I think we just got an agent. There was we were starting to make a little bit of buzz for ourselves. And it all kind of came at once. So I remember, like, this show never went ahead for some reason, but Tim Armstrong got interested in us.
Oh, wow, okay.
And somehow, not like directly, but somehow, like, he got us on a transplant show. I can't really remember how it went down, but there was little bits of buzz. Mike Davis was playing Can't Stop the Radio, the demo version.
Okay, yeah.
Sent it to him. So Mike Davis on Radio 1 was playing it. I think that's maybe how Tim Armstrong discovered it. Anyway, we got a transplant support slot at London Astoria, and maybe an agent came on board, and Mike Davis on Radio 1 was spinning us. And there were these little things happening, but then the fact that Feldmann jumped on it and that kind of it just made a bigger explosion. It's unbelievable, really. Yeah, when I think back on it. So I try not to downplay it, you know what I mean? I go like, fuck, the fact that I did that was an achievement. That was a real success. Musically, I'm pretty proud of the songs. They're definitely, it feels a little dated now. I feel like lyrically a little outdated. I was a young man. Like a lot of those songs were written before we actually recorded the album. So I was probably, a lot of those songs were written when I was probably around like 22, 23-ish.
Yeah. Well, there you go. And it's funny because, and times change as well. Because, like, you know, as I said before, I think we were saying, are you born 82?
Yeah.
Yeah, me too. So yeah, we're the same age. And like, when I heard those songs at the time, I thought the lyrics were good, blah, blah, blah. And now I listen to them now and, like, you know, not all the lyrics, but there's just the odd bit when you're like, oh, okay, I don't think he would have written that today or whatever. You know what I mean? It's funny. But that's always going to happen.
I was young.
Yeah.
And there's some sappy love songs on there, which I'm all about. I'm still a romantic. But I just don't. Yeah. I don't really write such emo love songs as I think, or heartbreak songs as I was doing at the time, you know, and everything's a bit more melodramatic when you're younger, you know what I mean?
Yeah,
but,
of course.
Like I say, we were bridging a gap at a bit of a strange time. So I feel like there was this like emo thing going on. There was this like emo had advanced from bands like The Promise Ring and Braid.
Yeah.
Into what I call like more like hot topic emo, like your Paramours and your Fall Out Boys and your Cute Is What We Aim For and all this. And we were playing with a lot of those bands. So it was this time where there was definitely that kind of like, there was a slight emo-ness to us during that time and our production style.
Yeah.
But there was also, there was this kind of old school throwback to like Elvis Costello and the Police and the Jam and like modern punk culture. Yeah. And I think there was a bit of that post-punk, like Block Party was a big band at the time.
Yeah, you can hear that in there as well.
The disco-y Block Party, kind of Gang of Four, early 80s thing. So it's like we had, to answer your question, musically, I felt for a long time it didn't date that much, but when I listened to it recently, I'm just like, it makes me think of that kind of MySpace era, basically.
Yeah, right, okay.
But we weren't, there was all those emo bands and we were playing with them all, but like, I had a suede head. I had a shaved head at the time.
Yeah.
We weren't doing those like haircuts. You know, we weren't one of those bands. So it was like we didn't entirely fit. And I think ultimately those types of bands that don't entirely fit, you either start a new thing and you fucking explode.
Yeah.
Or you do what we did, where we kind of like, we had this like semi-success and we got out there, but we didn't quite catch fire and become the next big thing, and it kind of
that's it, isn't it? Because like if you're doing something fresh in a, you know, like say as you say, you're kind of in that genre to an extent, but you bring something fresh to it, it's either people are going to love it, but or they're going to kind of like, oh, hang on, no, but this sounds like it's emo pop punk, but it's not Fall Out Boy. He sings too differently for that, and you know what I mean. And it's just. It has to strike the right chord, and sometimes it just kind of falls off, and I don't know, it's frustrating. But it's funny, like you mentioned it, like making you think of the MySpace era, because I'm just thinking of the album. I'm like, what, you know, when I listen to it now, what's my favorite song from it? And it's probably the opener still, just because I love the melody on the chorus. Super simple, but it works so well. But you even say, I think, in the first line about don't want to go to their MySpace. So
yeah, absolutely. And I actually think that's like, I mean, I was discussing that with Mike as well on his podcast, but you know, I do think that's it's I mean, it's a good and a bad thing, but I kind of like it. It's definitely referencing an era, and that's what it was. We were a time and a place.
Yeah. What were some of your favorite tours in that sort of timeline when you were kind of touring that record, or just before, when Beat Union was in its prime? What were some of the highlights? Obviously, as you said, you played pretty much with everyone at the time. Yeah,
I got to give a shout out to Ross Warnock from the agency group, because he was booking us, and he got us great opportunities, man. He got us playing with so many bands, so many tours. Yeah. It was awesome. I think that the very first like big pro tour, probably where we made this, when we were doing Shortcut to Newark, we were doing more DIY tours, and we did a tour with an Australian band or a New Zealand band, I can't remember exactly where they're from, called Stereogram. And that was kind of on a pro
level. I remember them, yeah.
So I'd had a taster of kind of pro-level touring, but really it was when we kind of became Beat Union and that band officially started, and we actually got an agent, and Ross, I think it was Ross, I don't know how it ended up, but the first big tour we did basically was Taking Back Sunday.
Okay.
So I got to tour around the UK with Taking Back Sunday.
Yeah.
You know, massive crowds. I remember we did Shepherd's Bush Empire in London, and that was just like, you know, that's going to be a standout, because that was just like, fuck, man. That was the first time I've like, fuck, we're doing it. Like, yeah. We're playing to massive crowds, you know, and then we continued to play with everyone under the sun, it seemed. Yeah, but you of course get a little more jaded. It's not quite as exciting as that first time, you know. Going to America and Japan was a big one, so those definitely stand out. You know, playing the Warped Tour was massive for us, because we grew up kind of like dreaming of that.
Of course, yeah.
You know, going to Japan was just, you feel like you're on another planet. That was incredible, and that was actually our biggest. That was my most kind of rock star moment, because you go to Japan.
Really? Yeah.
It's like, it's crazy. I think we'd had a video on MTV there. I think we'd had a song on the radio there. We had fans, you know, we go to our hotel and there's a handful of fans outside our hotel throwing magazines and CDs at us to sign. You know, you open a magazine and my face is in there and an interview, and it's like you barely even remember doing it. And you're like, okay, I think, I did that interview over the phone in English, but it's been taken and put into Japanese for a Japanese magazine. And when things start getting beyond your control, you know, you take care of your own little bubble. And the fact that you can just turn up in Japan and be like, what's this magazine I've never even heard of before, but you want me to sign it as I'm walking into my hotel?
Yeah, that's crazy.
Absolutely ridiculous. It's ridiculous, mate. That kind of experience is like, and you understand how people like, you know, your Kurt Cobains or your Amy Winehouses of the world.
Yeah.
You know, I was just dipping my toe.
Yeah. So you just got like a little taste of that, and so you can see what life is like generally for them. Yeah.
That was mental for me. The fact that it can be so intrusive and invasive, and it can also, you know, but it can also, what that can also do to your ego. And like I say, I was only dipping my toe in the water, so I don't think I turned into a fucking arsehole rock star overnight. You know, I really don't think I did. But you just see, like, man, if you're given that to an extreme level, day in, day out, like, of course, it's got to just mess with you or turn you into a drug addict or make you want to kill yourself or whatever. Like, I don't know how people handle that type of shit.
Yeah. You know, I'll not make you go into this too much because, you know, I heard you on Mike's show talking about it, like, but like you were kind of saying like the beginning of the end of Beat Union was sort of like when you had that unfortunate incident where you kind of, your van got broken into, I think it was, and you got ripped off for a load of stuff. That was kind of how that came apart, and then kind of led to you, you know, as you said before, having the period back at home and stuff. But it's funny, like I'm thinking back to my timeline and knowledge of Beat Union, because as I said already, you know, I was a big fan of the album, which I think was 2008, and then obviously there was nothing more from Beat Union. But the next stuff I remember from you personally was like just from your own personal not personal MySpace page, but like your music MySpace page. And I remember you had a song called, was it Photographs? Remember that one?
Yeah.
And like, it's funny, man. Like I like not too long ago, I was scouring the internet to try and find that song, because that's a fucking good song, man. I remember I really loved the middle 8 on it, and it's just a really good pop song. So like you'd obviously, were you kind of trying to start a thing like in your name? Like, because I can't remember what it was called, but it was like Davey and the somethings, or am I imagining that?
That, first of all, the Photograph was in the batch of demos towards the second Beat Union record.
Oh, okay. Oh, that makes sense. Okay.
So that was, I remember there was a batch of demos, and the two songs that kind of like got their way out there to some degree was Photograph, and then a song called Young and in Love, which became a Sway Dead song in the next band.
Okay.
Yeah, Photograph was, what it was I'd done all this stuff. I was doing I was almost like a spokesmodel for the clothing brand Hurley.
Yeah.
When we were on Warped Tour, they asked me to interview a load of bands for their website because they were sponsoring the tour. And it's a funny thing, because a lot of bands, they asked a few people on that tour to be like reporters for the tour, because they were quite hip on their web. You know, social media was starting to come in more and more. So they were very turned on to like wanting to have people involved in like any kind of musical personality, I guess, be a host at their website where they could like be and stuff, and bring in like daily content to the Hurley website about what was happening on Warped Tour. And they asked a few people to go around and interview bands, and apparently no one wanted to do it. Everyone kind of bottled up and was just like, nah, not into it. So I wasn't even the first person they asked. I think I was like the third or fourth down the list.
Right. Yeah.
And they were like, they asked so-and-so, but they didn't want to do it. And they asked so-and-so from this band, and, you know, maybe they thought they were too big a deal, or maybe they just were scared of doing it, or they just didn't want it. I don't know. But I said, yeah. I was just like, what, you're going to give me a microphone and follow me around with a video camera?
Yeah.
The equivalent of like being at Reading Festival kind of thing. Do you know what I mean? And interviewing bands and talking band. And I was like, yeah, I'll do that. I'm just on tour in America having an absolute dust. Like, yeah. That'll be awesome. So I just said, yeah. I wasn't even the top of their list. And I said, yeah. And I think that's a big thing in life, is just, again, from the, you know, getting that opportunity with the band and going to America, it's made me more open to, I don't want to get all hippie, to, I guess, like the universe, and just like, if you're thrown an opportunity, fucking grab it with both hands, because I could be back at my dad's house renting his spare room, working in a warehouse. Do you know what I mean? So there's all the feeling of, yes, just, you're offering me something, yeah, I'm going to grab it, I'm going to do it. So yeah, I went for it. that's kind of how it started. And I was interviewing all these different bands on Warped Tour, and that kept me like shaking hands with people and meeting people, I suppose. And then once Beat Union officially broke up, Hurley had contacted me again because of that kind of involvement, asking me to do some modelling for him, because they would have...
It's very flattering.
Exactly. And I'd never had an opportunity like that in Bromsgrove, Birmingham, you know what I mean?
Right. Yeah.
So I said, actually, they'd already had me do some modelling before that happened. So I kind of already had one foot in the door there, but they asked me to come back. Anyway, I went back out to America and did that kind of, there was a gig modelling. I guess it was just kind of like an ongoing thing.
Yeah.
So technically at this point I was bandless, but I was a Hurley model. It was all vague and I didn't know what I was doing. And Hurley had this recording studio. So I just started recording songs in there in my spare time. And that's where Photograph came about. And Paul Gomez, who was one of the guys at A&R Science Records, so he was one of the guys that signed Beat Union.
Yeah.
And was working on some kind of publishing deal, and he wanted to like have it didn't pan out, but he wanted to have me as like basically just writing as a songwriter, writing songs, and we'd be getting, you know, publishing money for these songs. So at this point I was just recording stuff, and I didn't know if I was going to be a solo artist. I wasn't meant to be a solo artist.
Okay.
It was just these songs didn't belong to a band, so they were just kind of, I think just one or two songs made it online, and I just made up a name. Or
I remember there was another song on that MySpace as well that was, I think she was called Kristen Key. So I assumed that was a song you'd written for her, like some pop star. Am I remembering that correctly? Yeah,
she was an artist that Feldy was working with, and that was
okay.
Feldy, because he had me. I think we were touring with Goldfinger, and Kristen was opening some shows, and he said that me and Kristen should write a song together. So she was opening some shows, and then Beat Union were playing, and Goldfinger, and just I think in like a hotel room or something, me and Kristen wrote that song. It was called Sorry, and I haven't heard it in years. And it was one of Feldmann's projects that didn't quite take off, you know. And this is where I go again, look back, and I'm so grateful for what Beat Union did, because, you know, Kristen never got a deal. We wrote that song together. Feldy produced it. Yeah. But her thing just kind of crumbled, and she never really broke out of her hometown scene. Yeah. You know, it just goes to show that, like, you know, she kind of didn't really do anything. And The Used was something that Feldy worked on that I just think like smashed the fucking ceiling off everything. And Beat Union was maybe just somewhere more in the middle. So I'm just so grateful that we kind of made it work.
Yeah, of course. And obviously gave you a leg up to kind of take things further in your career. So I guess, obviously you mentioned Suede Head a few times, and I remember when you formed that band. So when would that have been? Like early 2010s, I guess.
Yeah, Suede Head was about 2010, I think. Yeah. Or actually, I was writing throughout all 2010. I think we released our first EP actually in 2011. I was just trying to write as much as possible. You know, my band had broken up. I was in America. At this point, I was still kind of modelling, but I'd kind of taken over. I was engineering at the Hurley studio and kind of overseeing that. That had kind of turned into a day job for me. But I was just writing as many songs as I could in my spare time. And I always loved, like, talking about the kind of Elvis Costello and the jam kind of influence. I'd always loved the slightly more latter-day stuff of theirs. Or not, I shouldn't say latter-day, but a few albums in, when they both those the band and artists kind of dipped their toe in this kind of like soul and Motown thing. And I grew up on the film The Commitments as well. That was a massive influence in my life on just
great film. Bit of Roddy Doyle.
I obsessed on that film, man. I taped it and I would watch it every single day after school, like obsessed. And it just, that was my first kind of eye opener to kind of wanting to be in a band. And so I was just messing around with this kind of, I'd always been into kind of soul and Motown, and just kind of started messing around with that. And then it eventually turned into Suede Head, and kind of became a real, I had like, you know, all these demos. And then it was actually working with Social D.
Okay.
Mike asked to hear some of my demos once we'd finished working one day. I played him a couple of rough demos. Suede Head wasn't even a band. And then he even said, when he was sitting in the room, he was just like, man, you'll have to come out and play some shows with us. And of course, you just think he's just passing the time of day being nice, you know what I mean? But he actually followed through, hit me up to go and open a few Social D shows. So I literally kind of just went, and I'm this person that's like, you know, Beat Union's broken up. I haven't really got a band. I've just got a load of demos. So I'm just like, I'll make it happen. Yeah. So I kind of rally a band together as quickly as possible. And then we played the first couple of Social D shows just for a dust, just for a laugh. Yeah, yeah. And they were really good. And so that was literally the point where we just like, man, we've just rallied this band together in 3 weeks and open for Social D. Let's just keep going. So that was Suede. But I got to ask you, it's always interesting what did you think of that? Because I always felt like Suede was, obviously it was still me writing all the songs. So I feel like it kind of had something in common with Beat Union, but I wanted it to be kind of a departure and a different thing. So I don't know how that sat on, for someone like you who was obviously such a fan of the disconnected Beat Union record. Yeah. How did you feel hearing Suede Head? Were you stoked, or were you like, what's this?
That's a great question. And I want to be completely honest and not just be sycophantic here. I definitely wasn't at the end of the scale. I was like, what's this? What is this shit? I did like it. I didn't like it as much as, you know, the kind of disconnected sound of Beat Union. Because, like, you know, like I'm kind of, you know, I have a broad spectrum of music that I like, you know, like yourself, like I love soul, like Sam Cooke, I think is the best singer-songwriter of all time, blah, blah, blah. But fundamentally, I'm a pop punk guy, and like I have been since I heard What's My Age Again in the summer of '99. And like, that's my main thing. And what I loved about Beat Union, it was like taking that sound, but putting the kind of Elvis Costello English kind of stamp on it. You know, that's what I really loved about what Beat Union was doing. And obviously, you know, Suede Head wasn't really that, but I was a fan of you and your songwriting, and like I've kind of been following your career. So I kind of, you know, when I heard Suede Head, I wanted to like it as a fan of yours already. So I was partial to it. And it would be interesting, like, if it was someone I'd never heard of completely, if I would have liked it as much. And like, I can't really be objective there. It'd be interesting to know. But like, so I guess my answer to your question is like, I did kind of like it, but I wanted to like it because I was a fan of yours, if that makes sense.
Yeah. If you'd never heard Beat Union and you'd heard it with fresh ears, you might not have liked it as much. It was like you'd already been introduced to it, I guess, in a sense.
Yeah.
That makes sense.
But I think that's okay, because, you know, you already, you know, you've got me in the door, so I was kind of invested, and, you know, that's how it works sometimes, doesn't it? You know, like, we're all fans of bands for some of their older stuff, and they do newer stuff, and we try to like it and we want to like it, and we do like it a little bit, but we might not have liked it if it was by someone else. You know, it's funny. Is that something you've ever like struggled with being objective to songs that you've written at the time, and, you know, trying to take a step back? And
yeah, definitely. I think I'm getting better at it. I think the more I produce other bands, the better I think I'm getting at judging my own songs. I think, which might be a weird thing, but like, there's a handful of Sharp Shock songs at the moment that could be album. Yeah. Basically, we've got enough songs. We could put out album 3
Right.
and we've got enough songs. But I'm starting to get to the point where I'm just like, instead of just putting out songs, I was just like, if I'm actually producing it, and like, because the first couple of Sharp Shock records, honestly, they were really DIY. It's just like, I've got this amount of songs, so we put that out. I've got this amount of songs, we'll put that out.
Yeah.
But this time I'm just like, so really, if I'm honest, there has never been a whole lot of effort put into anything Sharp Shock's done. It's been a very
interesting. Okay.
thing. Yeah, it's not too forced at all. And we've just been lucky to do what we've done and have, tour with everyone that we've toured with, and have, Matt Skiba put out our first couple of albums and stuff like that.
Yeah, of course.
We've just been really lucky, but there's been no master plan behind Sharp Shock. And so I've definitely come to the point now where I'm like, I'm looking at this handful of songs that could be Sharp Shock's third album, and I'm kind of having that conversation with myself, like, do we just put this out? Does it matter? We're not Green Day. It doesn't have to be thought about that hard.
Yeah.
But there is part of me going like, that like you've got 4-5 bangers and the others aren't quite as strong.
Oh, interesting.
I know that in my heart of hearts. So, either I put something out that's, at 60%, or I keep writing.
Could you not just put an EP out with like 4 or 5 really strong songs? And
I've thought about that as well, but we're not really sure.
Okay.
Sure what to do at the moment.
So what was the gap between Suede Head and Sharp Shock? Like, how did kind of Suede Head fade out and Sharp Shock become a thing? Just quickly draw back into the timeline quickly.
Yeah, Suede Head faded out because we've done some awesome stuff. We got played on K-Rock here in California. We've been touring with Social Distortion, Flogging Molly. We played Coachella. That was quite a highlight. That was awesome.
That's very cool. Yeah.
Yeah, and we had Brett Gerwitz from Epitaph was trying to sign us.
Oh, really? Okay.
Who, to go into the story a bit more,
yeah,
Brett was the first person that wanted to sign. When I said the first bit of buzz was happening with Beat Union, Brett wanted to sign us, and we would have at the time been the first British band to sign to Epitaph.
Really?
Yeah, and it's
wow.
It's a long story short. I won't go into it, but it didn't work out. It didn't end up happening, and Brett was really interested in Suede Head as well. And he came to some shows, and he was going to sign us. He was talking to our manager, Shane, and it was pretty much a done deal. And then it fizzled out a bit. I think he stepped back for a second, and I think his words were he was having a hard time. Again, Suede Head didn't quite fit in the scene. He loved the songs and he loved the band, but he was having a hard time working out, I think, how to market it and how it would fit with Epitaph at that time.
Okay.
It just kind of fizzled. And at the time, Suede Head was a 7-piece band, and because we had horns.
Yeah.
We had drums, bass, 2 guitars, keys, 2 horns usually, sometimes 3. So sometimes there could be anywhere between 5 and 8 of us on stage. So it was just an ordeal to kind of, even to plan a rehearsal, to make any show kind of happen. And it just got to this point where every show that we were playing was kind of just draining money. Like no one was making any money. And I've always said, like, I never got into music for the money, but I didn't get into it for the debt either. Do you know what I mean? I had kind of experience of like Beat Union falling apart. I was in this slightly different phase in my life. For whatever reason, I was getting paid working in a studio, recording bands, and I had a lot of records going on at the time. I think I was about to do a throwdown record. And I was just that kind of studio world was starting to open up to me, and like bands were hitting me up, and I was, I'm still not some super producer, and I'm still trying to be better and work on my craft, you know what I mean? Yeah. And my trade. But things were kind of just developing, and for whatever reason, I kind of looked at my life and I was like, this side of music is paying the bills. When I work in the studio right now, that seems to pay the bills, and like I seem to pay my rent with it. And this side of me being the performer songwriter person is kind of just draining money, and it's just not working. It's just got really hard. And the fact was, I had these two different sides and I loved them both.
Right.
And so I wasn't selling out in any way. It was just kind of like, right now, this one is working and this one is delivering, and this one's kind of happening. So I just started putting more time into the studio stuff, and I was like equally fulfilled. You know what I mean?
Yeah, yeah.
And I just had a couple of bands that had kind of done all that stuff, like got an agent, got a manager, got radio play, had label interest, toured with everyone under the sun. And again, it's not like you do it all for fame or anything like that, but it's just a bit when there's that spark and it kind of moves to the next level.
Yeah,
things progress on their own. I think it's easier to kind of follow it through. And Suede was just kind of naturally, and again, it just formed for a laugh. It was only because Mike Ness called and said,
yeah.
It was all so natural. It wasn't premeditated or manufactured. So when it also just, when it started to fizzle out, it just felt like the right time. And I was just busy with the studio stuff, and that was fulfilling. So I just kept my head down and kept concentrating on producing and engineering and followed that path.
So you did that for a bit, and then it was just like, you just wanted to kind of form another band. And like with Sharp Shock, was it always going to be like a part-time thing? And, the odd tour here and there, like what?
Again, Beat Union was this really premeditated, like I say, Beat Union was for working class kids working minimum wage jobs.
Yeah.
Hating their life and wanting to change something.
Yeah.
Actively like trying to get away from that, trying to go on tour, trying to sign a deal, trying to change our lives. And ever since then, I think it's just been more organic and more natural. So I was working in the studio a lot. I kept bumping into Dan Smith, bass player of Sharp Shock, who we'd met. Backstory on me and Dan is that Dan's old band was signed to the same label as Beat Union, Science Records.
Okay.
So I met Dan in probably like 2007 or something. And we'd just been mates and kind of been in and out of touch for years. Dan actually I remember he lent Suede his van. We did a Suede tour in Dan's van, I think, at one point. And so Dan had just been a friend acquaintance for a lot of years. And I kept bumping into him, and he had this idea of like jamming, doing a band.
Yeah.
He was busy with his tattoo career. Dan's like a very well-known tattoo artist, got his own shop, Captured Tattoo.
Okay.
And he was at the music game, out the playing music game as well, like I was. And he had this idea we should get together and jam. And I was like, I got some songs, let's do it.
Okay.
Recorded some songs and then played them for Skiba. Matt Skiba released them, and it was just, the next thing you know, we're just in this other like organic band that just kind of happened.
How were you friends with him? Was it because you did some, like, do you do some engineering on an Alkaline Trio record or something prior to that? Is that how you know him?
Yeah, so Alkaline Trio recorded their Damnesia record with the producer Cameron Webb. Cameron's a good mate of mine, and Cameron.
Well, he's done a lot of stuff, hasn't he?
Yeah, Cameron's awesome, man. He's done a lot of great stuff, and he's a good friend of mine, and he's helped me out a lot over the years. And he had me assist on a few of his records, actually. But I was assistant engineer on that, so I was, setting up microphones and gear and patch bays and stuff for Cameron. And that's I think how I met Alkaline, was on that record. And then a few years later, I think I recorded an acoustic song with Matt. He wanted to do a B-side for his solo record for the Secret. Matt Skiba and the Secret. So we did a B-side together, I think it was. And then Dan's old band, the Deer Departed, had toured with Alkaline Trio, and we were both mates with Matt. And so I think Matt was just naturally kind of wanted to help, just being a friend of ours.
Nice. Do you talk to Matt much these days? I see him wearing like the Sharp Shock shirts and stuff still.
Yeah. I haven't spoke to him in a while. So, I mean, with COVID and stuff, and he's definitely very busy in Blinkland.
Obviously. Yeah.
You know, I think his life's changed a lot. But he actually texted me the other day. But we haven't had a whole lot of contact with it. I mean, it generally just feels like these days, the past year, it feels like bands, I mean, they exist online right now, you know, but
yeah,
like,
of course.
how real is that? So at the moment, it's such a strange time, man, because it just feels like your identity is taken, you know, I think for any musician, it's a weird time, and I think we're all struggling because...
Yeah, it's tough, isn't it?
Of course, our bands do still exist on some level, but if you're not out there playing, it's like, if you're not out there playing and rehearsing and doing that, are you even in a band? You know, like it's so weird right now. So it definitely feels like things have changed to the way they were a couple of years ago.
And then I suppose like it obviously you mentioned Face to Face earlier, but like, you know, I know you did the Bad Cop record, which came out not that long ago. Obviously, we've talked about Lovebreakers. Got that album coming out this summer, finally, I think. You know, a few singles already out on that. That's some big tunes on that record. Is there any other bands you've worked with recently that have kind of really excited you and impressed you?
Yeah, I'm actually juggling a few full-length records at the moment between different bands and artists.
Right.
I'll give you the lowdown. Okay. Working on a full-length record for an artist called Suzi Moon. Suzi is an awesome songwriter. She was in the band Civet, who were on Hellcat Records.
Oh, right, okay.
Toured with Beat Union years ago. So I've known Suzi forever, but Suzi's doing a solo thing now. And we just worked on a few songs that have become her first single. And that's just about to come out, I think, on Pirates Press Records. It's an EP called All the Shots. And so I did some work on that. But me and Suzi are actually working on a 10-song debut album.
Right, okay.
So working on that. Also working on songs with an artist called Taylor Blackwell, who is an actor from LA. She was in the band The 10th. The 10th are on a little bit of a hiatus. They're not doing much at the moment, obviously through COVID and stuff. And Taylor's been working on a solo record. And there's like a bubblegum pop punk side to it, but it's definitely more, you know, there's a couple of songs that are on the side of her band The 10th. I think fans of The 10th will like a couple of the songs. But there's definitely a few songs that get into like Belle and Sebastian territory, or like a folkier kind of acoustic Simon & Garfunkel territory. So we're working on that. But she's an up-and-coming actress. She's been in some stuff and been on TV and stuff. So I think she's got a bright... Whether she accelerates in acting or music or both, but I think she's a young talent, and I'm really just excited to see what... You know, she's in her early 20s and you just go...
Right.
Man, you've got your whole life ahead of you.
Yeah. Definitely.
The other record I'm juggling is a band called Upper Downer. They're a punk band from LA that I would say are somewhere between, I hear elements of like Propaganda and No Effects and maybe some Leatherface. Maybe even a little bit of like Blink part. There's definitely some kind of Blink. The vocals are nothing like Blink. The vocals go more on the kind of Leatherface, Frankie Stubbs, grittier, you know, side of things. But some of the melodies and stuff and guitar work makes me think of like Propaganda, No Effects, Blink 182, which is a interesting mix. But I'm working on their record, and that's they're a little punk band from LA, but.
Right.
The guitarist, Chris Kehoe, like he can fucking rip, man. He's a great guitarist and he writes great songs. So another one that I'm just kind of excited about what they'll do. I hope they're just self-funding this record, and I hope like they can find a label to put it out or get some kind of attention, because they're a really, really cool band.
Oh, nice. Yeah, well, for the listener, we'll certainly link all of these artists in the show notes. I'm sure I'll find them all on all their social medias and stuff.
Cool. And yeah, hit me up if you need those links or anything.
Yeah, of course, man. Of course. Have you got anyone coming in soon that you're excited about, or
that's all the stuff
slash that you can talk about?
There's a few things in the works. Like I know, I can probably say this now, but I think Lovebreakers, awesome Brummy band.
Yep, certainly aware of them.
Yeah, the debut album that I did is, it's coming out, and we're already trying to kind of talk about the second one. So I don't know if it's definite, but they flew out here and worked with me on the first record, and it seems like they want to do the same thing again on the second. Which
awesome.
I really, really hope they do, because they've got a special place in my heart, man. I love them, and I really want to help them through the second record as well. Templeton Peck are another Brummy band that are talking about coming out recording with me at some point. So
okay, they've been around a little while.
Yeah, they've been around, but I did their last record, and
did you? Okay.
Again, it's all funny how stuff pans out. Like Kev, the guitarist from Templeton Peck, he did front of house sound for Beat Union on a handful of tours. So we're old mates, and it's just funny how everyone's life just keeps entwining, I guess. And
it's all connected.
All
connected, isn't it? Is there any?
It's all connected.
Oh, I see it. Nicely done.
Hey!
Nicely done, man.
You're like the only person that would get that, but since you love it,
that's fine with me. You've read the room nicely there. So, bit of a broad question, but I am genuinely curious. If you could get anyone in your studio, like next month, to record their next full length, who would be contenders for that?
That's a great question. This is a weird thing to say, man, but I had a conversation once with someone about if you had a dying wish, like if you were terminally ill. Yeah. Like, what would you try and make happen? And I always thought, like, I'm a massive fan of Descendants and All, especially the Descendants side project All, which Descendants obviously just overshadows All, but I'm a fan of All just as much as Descendants. And just because All are the underdog, I'm almost a fan of them more because of that. And anyway, obviously Bill Stevenson needs no introduction, but he, one of my biggest influences, all those cats that are kind of wear those hats of being a songwriter, musician, and a producer engineer, like that stuff has always been a massive influence on me. So it's like someone like that, he doesn't need anyone else recording him. It's like Bill and the blasting room are always going to take care of that.
Right.
But I would love, that's kind of like a dying wish for me. It's like, man, could I record Descendants or All? Because it's never going to happen. It's never going to happen. So to be like, come and do a song with me and let me produce a song, let me record you all, so it'd probably be Descendants or All. Real quick, what's your favourite Descendants or All song? There's so many good ones. Descendants, you got to there's obviously like old school Descendants and new school Descendants. Yeah, and it varies, obviously. I think ultimately Everything Sucks is just the best record. Mm-hmm. It just is. I think Thank You or She Loves Me are the best songs on those records for me. Thank You, She Loves Me. Yeah, Thank You's the one about thanking his favourite band, basically, isn't it? It's been so long since I've listened to that record, actually. Supposedly about Black Flag. Is it Black Flag? Okay, yeah. Yeah, I think Alvarez wrote it about Black Flag, is what I read. Right. For All, there's far too many. Maybe She's My Ex. She's My Ex or $1,000,000. Mm-hmm. I was just randomly on my when you go on Instagram and just hit on the search thing and random videos pop up. I had the random performance of $1,000,000 on Conan from 1995 that I was just watching this afternoon. I've seen that. You say that. Yeah. It's brilliant. Yeah, so good. I mean, you talk about how times have changed, talking about punk, the punk bands getting major record label deals. Yeah. And the kind of deal and the things that Beat Union got to do because of the time and the place and the era we were in. And now you see bands like, say, Lovebreakers
Yeah.
or Templeton Peck and these bands like manage themselves and be a little more DIY.
Yeah.
You know, case in point right there, a punk band playing guitar music like that, like All and Million Bucks, being on Interscope Records and doing a Saturday Night Live talk show on like prime time telly doesn't really happen these days. You know what I mean?
Yeah, it's interesting, isn't it?
There aren't so many. Of course, like guitar music still matters, but I don't think there's so many like pop punk bands doing that kind of thing. It's not the big thing of the moment. You know what I mean?
No, I mean there's exceptions to the rule. Like you see like All Time Low, people like that being really huge and being on things like that. But generally, it's not the same as what it was.
Yeah, but the thing is, I think it's interesting is they all made their name. The spark or the way the explosion happened, it happened years ago. So they're still kind of, I don't know. You take a new band, like a newer punk band doesn't quite reach those heights.
I see what you're saying. Yeah.
I don't think Sharp Shock will ever be on Conan.
Right. Yeah.
Do you know what I mean?
Yeah, I know what you're saying. Yeah. Well, it'd be interesting to see if like those times come around for this kind of music again. You know. Yeah. I think it could happen. I don't want to say that Sharp Shock will never be on Conan. Yeah.
It's just not. It's not quite. It just doesn't happen quite the same these days, I don't think.
Yeah, no, it's funny. Probably wrap this up relatively soon, as you know, as fun as this is, and I'm sure I could talk all night, but you know, let's keep it as concise as we can. But I guess like before we, you know, obviously if there's anything else you want to mention while we've got you, obviously grab me. But I just one thing I want to ask you about before we go is just like, you know, being English like myself, and like, you know, I've always had like a love for California, been there many times and stuff. Never lived there though. As someone who's lived there, you know, a decent portion of your life now, like I'm assuming overall you like it more than living here, but like, could you pinpoint anything particular that you like more about it? And is there things that you miss about the UK and UK culture that, you know, do you see yourself back in the UK one day as well? Like, you know, sorry, I'm asking you about 7 questions at once here, but
no, it's interesting, mate. I think about this stuff regularly. I actually recently got dual citizenship, so I'm actually now an American citizen and an English or a British citizen, I should say.
Yeah.
Oh man, it's been an ongoing thing. That question's a can of worms, but I'll try and keep it brief. Yeah, I miss stuff about British culture every single day of my life. I miss the sense of humour. I miss, you know, there's something so unique about British sense of humour.
Yeah.
I miss British food. I miss British.
What British food do you miss?
I mean, everything. I miss a Sunday roast. I miss a Sunday dinner. That's just a classic British staple, isn't it? But then just like chocolate, British chocolate is a big thing.
Yes, it's interesting you say that. I mean, like my experiences in America and California, like, you know, there are food examples that obviously they do better, which, you know, there's Mexican food, for example, but there's countless examples. But yeah, things like crisps, chocolate, like if you take like a British Twix, for example, and an American one, and like taste the difference. Like American ones are fucking horrible in comparison. You know? And like just bread in general is not as good. It's little things like that, you know, that they don't do as well. So I can understand why.
There's all those differences. I miss, even though I'm not really a drinker these days, I don't really drink alcohol anymore. That's something I've just grown out of that, I think. And that's another story altogether, but I still miss British pub culture, you know, getting together and having a pint with your mates or whatever. That's obviously different. However, you know, upsides to America really is, or at least California, I was always taken with the weather.
Right.
You know, having the sun and the palm trees and living by the sea, by the ocean is it's unbelievable, really, especially coming from around Birmingham and like in the inland Midlands of the UK. So I came on tour in America for the first time when I was about 25.
Yeah.
24, 25. I'd been to the beach, to the seaside, 10, 15 times in my life, something like that, And it's funny now, like I live right by it, but when I think about that and I go, at 25 years of age, the amount of times that I'd seen the sea, that I'd seen the beach and the ocean.
That's mad.
I could practically count on one hand.
Yeah.
Now it's like...
Different story, isn't it?
Yeah. So my first year or two here was definitely always just like, wow. And I actually rented a house on the beach for a while, purely to like fulfill that need of just like, I'm here in Southern California. I'm living on the fucking beach. And me and my girlfriend at the time, we rented a place. And I was just like, I'm fucking doing it, man. I'm going to live on the beach. So I definitely, the weather here is great. But really, my reason for staying was just life and these opportunities and these doors within the music world were open to me. Really, that's the reason that I stayed, is that music was number one in my life. And I did not, like I said before, I didn't want to keep working at Harris Brush Factory. I didn't want to keep washing cars at Neil's Garage. I didn't want to keep delivering car parts at Bromsgrove Motor Factories, as much fun and good times I actually had at some of these jobs. I just knew that I had a certain talent where I could do something else with my life, and that wasn't fulfilling my potential. So America just... Like I say, we had some good success in the UK as well, but America just seemed to open the doors for me. I don't know why. I can't explain it.
Yeah.
Maybe it's some hippie shit to do with the universe or your fucking life contract or fate. I don't know. I do not know. But for whatever reason, for as much as I've beaten the door down in California and hung on to the dream, the doors have also been slightly cracked open, and I've had these opportunities, and it's like, it's always felt like I've had like a carrot dangled, and then I've had to fucking grab it with both hands and hold on for dear life, And here I am, 10, 15 years later with citizenship, and I'm still here. So I just keep, and that's where my studio is now, So I just keep it going. I do think I'll be back in the UK at some point.
Okay. Oh, interesting. What, just kind of sometime in the distant future?
Well, I don't know for sure, but all I know is it's where I'm from, right? It's where my family are, and like my mum and dad are getting older, and there's just that thing of like, I don't know, at some point, are they going to need me to look after them, or what's that? Yeah. You just, as you get older, you just start to see a bit more of that in the future, and you just go, that was part of the reason for getting my citizenship, is that I just knew that if I had to, I can now come back. See, when I was on a green card, you could lose your green card at any time. Right. With my citizenship, if I have to go back for any kind of family responsibility or anything, if I have to go back to the UK and maybe work for a year or something, like, I can do that and still
come back again. Got you.
I don't know what the plan is, honestly. Because that would be quite messy and it all costs a lot of money. So I will say this, the immigrant life, it's not fucking easy. It's right. It's like, there's something, even having my dual citizenship now, I think that means that I pay taxes in America for the rest of my life. So even if I did come back and live in the UK, something like I'd have to pay tax in both countries. There's loopholes, man, where people think it's a fucking dream, but it's a double-edged sword.
Downsides, right? Okay.
Yeah.
But long may your the thing you've got going out there continue and just get more and more successful, man. And people keep seeking you out to do their records, and I think I only see good things for you, man.
Thank you, mate. And if anyone wants to hit me up. There's a website, daveywarsop.com, or my Instagram is usually the place, Davey Boy Warsop.
Yeah. Obviously, we'll link all of that, so that's the best place if bands or whoever want to reach out to you.
Absolutely. I always I'm a fan of a DM. If you want to hit me up, send me your demo or anything, I'll always get people back.
Yeah, I heard you saying that on Mike's show, actually. That, I thought that was really cool that, you're always, you just encourage bands to reach out to you, even if it's just getting your opinion on a song or whatever. And you know what, Davey, I can vouch for that because I've, as I've said before on this show earlier on, that I've been in bands over the years. I've sent you stuff and you've always got back and said stuff. So I can vouch for the fact that you're not bullshitting here. So
that's fun. I didn't know you sent me stuff. Actually, that's awesome. So
I haven't sent you anything for years, but it's and it goes back to that whole thing of not being able to be objective with your own work or whatever. So the stuff that I look back that I've sent you in the past that I'll cringe at massively. A couple of more recent stuff I think still holds up, but it's how it goes, isn't it?
Well, right here, case in point, mate. I'm a big believer. Like I've talked about, these bands that I'm working with and people that I met years ago.
Yeah,
I'm a big believer in the way life unfolds and kind of what goes around comes around and all that kind of stuff. And so right there, I didn't even know, but we're connecting now on this podcast. Sure. I didn't know you sent me demos in the past. It might have been 10 years ago. It might have been 2 years ago, but I wasn't aware of that. Now, had I just not had time for you, or never, whether it's like I'm too busy for people, whether it's like I'm in rock star land and not down to earth enough or whatever, but there's a lot of people that like, I don't want to be too hippie, but closing the door on opportunities or the universe, I think it's a bad thing. You got to be open to
Definitely.
Stuff. Connecting with people is what makes life unfold and makes the wheels go round. I'm a big believer in that. So the very fact that I answered to you, had I not, if I hadn't had time to listen to your demo or write back to you, maybe you wouldn't have hit me up to do this podcast, And
there you go.
God knows, we'll be in touch again in another 10 years. I don't know.
Yeah, well, if things pan out with Lovebreakers, hopefully we'll touch base before then, man.
Absolutely.
But anyway, man, I'll let you go. Thanks so much for doing this. It's been really fascinating, and I always like these ones, man, because as you can tell, I'm a fan of the stuff you've done throughout the years. So I didn't have to do that much research for this one, and that's always a bit easier. I can just I didn't have to look at my notes for this one. I could just reel off the thing, which isn't always the case, but so it's nice to do one like this.
Well, Chris, thanks for having me. It's been an absolute pleasure, mate.
Anytime, man. All right, stay in touch, Davey, and Cheers. Enjoy the rest of your Friday. Cheers, pal.